Good morning, and welcome to the Universalist Church, in which love is the Spirit. We are so glad you are here today, here in the sanctuary, or anywhere in the world, especially those visiting or returning from a time away. I am Steve Leibin, one of your representatives on our Board of Trustees. If you are a visitor, welcome. We hope you'll talk with our welcome team or visit our webpage, www.westhartforduu.org, to learn more about us. Our guest book or online contact page will help you get onto our electronic mailing list. Our electronic communications are the best way for us to stay connected. We look forward to helping you become part of the Universalist Church community. We're in the season of colds, flu, and COVID. Though the risk of severe illness is considered low, if you are unvaccinated or would prefer a mask, our ushers have some, and we're happy to share. After worship, we'll have fellowship in Fisk Hall and through Zoom. If you need help finding your way to Fisk Hall, which is directly at the back of the church, for our fellowship hour, any member of the church will be happy to guide you. Just look for someone wearing a church name tag. You can find the link for Zoom in our weekly news or our Breeze calendar. If you aren't getting the weekly news, please sign up for it on our website. And now, I invite you to take a moment to make your mobile phone silent, turn off your email, and put away your keyboards, and let's settle in for worship.
Shepherds go worship the babe in the manger. Lo, for his cart the bright angels attend. Brightest and best of the sons of the morning, dawn on our darkness and lend us thy aid. Star in the east, the horizon adorning, guide where our infant Redeemer was laid. Cold on his cradle the dewdrops are shining, low lies his bed with the beasts of the snow. Angels adore him in slumbers reclining, wise men and shepherds before him do fall. Brightest and best of the sons of the morning, dawn on our darkness and lend us thine aid. Star in the east, the horizon adorning, guide where our infant Redeemer was laid. Say, shall we yield him in costly devotion orders of Eden and offerings divine, gems from the mountain and pearls from the ocean, myrrh from the forest and gold from the mine. Brightest and best of the sons of the morning, dawn on our darkness and lend us thine aid. Star in the east, the horizon adorning, guide where our infant Redeemer was laid.
If you have a home chalice and it's ready to go, please light yours as we light ours here in the sanctuary. And we light our chalice as a start to our worship, but also as a start to this festival time, this season of light. And this is one more light among so many. Candles and oil lamps and fireworks, twinkling lights on trees or menorahs, Yule logs and hearth fires, suns and moons and stars, as well as the lights that we find within ourselves. Here in this congregation, our faith and our trust in what is beyond us, too. May this day be a joyful start to a season filled with all good things for all people. May it be so. Our opening hymn speaks to this theme quite well. It's number 362 in the gray hymnal. Number 362, it's called Rise Up, O Flame, and it is a little bit of a round. I'm curious what your plan is.
Sing it in unison, then 3 times through in parts.
All right, so we're going to sing it in unison, and then 3 times through in parts. How do you want the sanctuary divided?
Split it right in half.
Right in half. All right, so you all with me, we're going to sing part 1. And over here, you all with that part of the choir, so you have a good crowd leading you two, you're going to be part 2. All right.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Vision and joy.
Nicely done. We haven't done a round in here in a while. Thank you all so much. Please join me in speaking the words of our affirmation, our covenant. It's printed in your order of service and in the description online. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated. So today is an intergenerational service that is going to do some stories and talk about what on earth this whole Advent thing is. So settle in, prepare to hear a few stories, learn a bit, all of us together. Once upon a time, there were people who lived in places that were very dark and very cold in wintertime, even darker and even colder than here. And when the nights were darkest and longest, they lit candles and lamps and brought branches of evergreen trees into their homes to remind themselves that the winter would not last forever.
They had stories about gods and goddesses like Odin and Freya and Thor. Later, they also learned stories about a man named Jesus. When the days were short and the nights were long, they began to tell stories by candlelight about when Jesus was born. And they kept making their houses beautiful with evergreens. Many of us decorate for the season this way, the way that once upon a time people did. with trees and wreaths and lights and things that sparkle in the dark and long winter nights.
So this time, just after Thanksgiving for us here in the United States, and before Christmas, when the nights are growing longest, is called Advent. Advent comes from the Christian tradition, and it's the name of the 4 Sundays before Christmas. Advent does not have very many of its own stories. Instead, Advent is a time of waiting, of expecting, of excitement for things to come.
During this time, there are other holidays that use lights to celebrate too, like Hanukkah, winter solstice, Kwanzaa, and New Year's Eve. Because Unitarian Universalism comes out of the Christian tradition originally, even though we aren't all Christian, Advent is part of our history, our tradition too. The Christian story tells us about a very special time of waiting for a woman named Mary. She was waiting with a heart full of love for her baby, Jesus, to be born. As we can all celebrate Advent as a time when we wait together in hope and in love for all the blessings of this season of light.
So, you will see lights of all kinds at this time of year. Candles and lamps, little twinkling electric lights, maybe some bags filled with sand and candles glowing along pathways. Luminaria are lovely. And even some fireworks as we come into the new year. Those lights bring us joy and beauty when the nights get longer and we humans don't tend to see very well. The night is beautiful, all by itself. And when we make it dance with our little lights, echoing the stars above, it becomes magical. Not every day of the holidays is joyful, of course. Even during holiday times, difficult things do happen. And then we think about how the night and the lights can become most honest, most comforting, most hopeful.
We can look forward to stars and lights that twinkle cheerfully to flames on the menorah or the Yule logs that bring warmth and remembering on cold nights, to parties and songs and decorations that remind us that we can make the world beautiful even when the leaves and flowers are gone for a time. Advent can be the time when we celebrate in our favorite ways and join with our friends in celebrating in their favorite ways too.
And so, before we begin the stories, we are going to find a way to help ourselves and the rest of the world to have this be a more helpful holiday season. Because the voluntary offering, the sharing of our resources for our shared work as a religious community, is a spiritual practice and a great gift during this time of year. By offering your time and talent and treasure to our community, you help us serve our members and friends and wider community too. So as part of that service, we share our general offering each week with organizations that do work in the world that bring us closer to becoming the beloved community. And this month, we share our offering with Hands on Hartford. Founded in 1969 as the Center City Churches, Hands on Hartford is a social service, not-for-profit organization that serves Hartford's most economically challenged residents with help for food, housing, and health. The agency has had a long-standing commitment to providing respectful and comprehensive services with help from volunteers and its community partnerships. To give electronically, please use the QR codes on your order of service or the links in the description. Here in the sanctuary, our offering will now be gratefully received. May these gifts, so generously given, sustain the work that we do together, the life of this community, and the work that we seek to see in the world, so it might become the world that we hope. Thank you. Thank you.
Since this is the start of the Advent season, we're using our Advent wreath. We use it to count down the weeks through the season. We light one candle each week here in worship. Some people light the candles keeping a virtue in mind. The first candle is hope, then peace, then joy. That's the pink one. And then love.
And then there's this last one, the white one in the middle, and that's traditionally lit for Christmas Day. But at home, I actually have different things that I use in the middle of my Advent wreath for different celebrations. Something for the solstice, something for Christmas, maybe something for a special time with friends and family. I've even been known to put a bowl with nuts and fruit in the middle to remind me of the gifts of nature and all of the abundance that we can experience.
Our call to worship is a special litany that is all about Advent, which we also call the season of light, because all the holidays we celebrate at this time of year use candles and lights.
So a litany means that I'm going to speak, and after each time I speak, all of you and Richard will respond with the exact same words every time. It's as simple as can be, and everybody who is of speaking age can participate. So, today, it's really simple. You're just going to say, "Let us wait and see." So then, at the very last time, I will say, "Should we wait and see?" And you will all say, with both of us, "Let us wait and see" once more. So I'm going to ask you to please rise in body or in spirit. And we're going to practice this at least once through to make sure we've got it. I think we're going to be good. So, follow Richard as he says,
Let us wait and see.
"Brilliant!" And I even saw some very small people moving their mouths in what looked like the right words. That's marvelous. All right. So, autumn is ending and the air is chilly. When will we have snow on the ground? Winter is coming.
Let us wait and see.
The last of the oil is burning in the temple. When will we know if there is enough to make it through? Hanukkah is coming.
Let us wait and see.
Our days grow shorter and our nights grow longer. When will the sun grow stronger and stronger? Solstice is coming.
Let us wait and see.
People tell stories of gifts for the world, a baby and a wonderful star. When will these gifts arrive? With joy and peace. Christmas is coming.
Let us wait and see.
And some lights and decorations are already up. More will be coming soon. But when will we celebrate all of our holidays together? Advent is starting.
Let us wait and see.
Should we wait and see?
Let us wait
And see. Let's join in singing our doxology. It's in your order of service. Please be seated. And our first story will be told by Patricia.
Once upon a time, there were people hiding in the dark. They were told they were not allowed to tell certain stories and to celebrate in a certain way that made them feel the most special. They were told they weren't allowed to be themselves out in the open. So, they hid themselves away and they waited underground where there was no light. Even so, they were glad to be together and to tell their stories without fear. After a while, though they comforted each other in the darkness, well, they began to run out of food. So, a young, brave girl, some called her Lucia, some called her Lucy, brought the people hiding in the dark some bread. Lucia needed a light to find the people and to draw them to the bread, but if she carried a candle in one of her hands, that meant she wouldn't be able to carry enough bread to feed everyone. So, clever Lucia wore a wreath of candles on her head, like a crown, so that she could carry the biggest armload of bread she could in both her hands. The people hiding in the dark saw the light floating nearer, and Lucia's bright eyes behind the many round loaves of golden bread. While the people waited for the day to come when they would no longer hide in the dark, Lucia brought them bread and light.
As we begin our time of prayer and reflection, I invite you to open your hearts to the concerns of this community and those beyond. And fortunately, I have not heard a lot from any of you saying that you are in need of deep prayer, though I know that even when people don't say it, sometimes that is true. So I ask you, as we begin this time, moving into this festival season, to keep in mind those among us who are perhaps struggling or a bit lonely, who are having a hard time, whether because of immediate circumstances or memory. There are a few people who have been mentioned to me as folks who would especially love to hear from us, who might not have heard from us for a bit. And so the first thing I would do is ask you to remember to reach out to those members of this community who you haven't seen in a while, whether because they haven't been in church for a bit or because they have found it that they need to stay at home and watch online and therefore might be a little disconnected. Some of those people include Shirley Lucas, Joyce Sherm, Pat Pierce, Judy Bush. I'm sure there are others. Those are the names that have come to me as folks who would love to hear from us. So please, reach out to them and to anyone else that you are missing too. Now, let's join together in a moment of prayer. As we turn inward and think about what it is that is deep within us, I want you to ask yourselves for a moment what it is that you truly want in this holiday season. What is in the depths of your soul, at the heights of your longing? What is it that you want more than anything else? Perhaps it's a toy, a gift, a delicious meal, a good time. Maybe it's family and friends. Or perhaps it's quiet and calm, good health, less to do, less to think about, more peace. as you think about what it is within you that is most wanting to arise, to happen, to be drawn to you, to be the presence that you receive in this time, I now ask that you turn your awareness toward other people. What is it that the people around you need most? What is it that you might wish for them? What is your heart and soul's longing for the rest of the world? Perhaps it is peace or justice. Perhaps it is goodwill and abundance, plenty of food, good health, safety, joy. Holding what it is within us that we want for ourselves and for the whole of the world, let us take a time in stillness and prayer together. Spirit of love and compassion that exists within and beyond and among us all. Help us to balance our wish for abundance with our desire for generosity, our wish for fun with our need for rest, our wish for holiday lights with finding true comfort in the darkness. May the presents we give and receive this year be the ones we most need, be the ones that bring the most good into the world. And may this holiday season be one of blessing for each and every and all. Amen. Because there are so many stories in this period of time that we actually do tell and do pay attention to. We talk about Hanukkah every year, and we also talk about the Christmas story. These two are ones that we come back to all the time in this congregation. I wanted to tell you another story about light. We don't usually do much with the winter solstice, but there is something about that moment where the sun is reborn that is actually really important to us all, I think. If our nights kept getting longer and longer, and our days kept getting shorter and shorter, and it never stopped, I think we'd be pretty miserable. There's something about that coming back that's really important for life on the planet and for our own well-being. And so this is a French story. It's called The Rebirth of the Sun. One morning, the sun got up in a very bad mood. I am so tired of getting up every morning and giving light to the earth day after day after day. I am tired of ripening the corn and melting the snow. What do you people, human race, ever do for me in return? And so the sun was in a sulk, thinking all this over, very, very grumpy, when the rain arrived. "Lady Rain," the sun remarked, "you water the earth all the time, and you make the flowers grow, you turn the fields green, and you fill up their rivers. But what does the human race ever do for you in return?" Hearing this, the rain furrowed her brow and broke out in a terrible noise, a big crack of thunder, and fell headlong onto the earth. And as she fell, she pounded out these words: "Listen, Mother Earth, you let humankind work you and rip you open and scratch and scrape you. And what do those human beings ever do for you in return?" And the earth turned into its own furrows, looking at what was planted. All of the little seeds thinking that they wanted to be born, and it decided that it had some questions too. The earth murmured to the grain of wheat, "Hey, little grain of wheat, you let yourself die so that human beings can eat bread. What does the human race ever do for you?" And so the sun stopped shining. And the rain stopped falling. And the earth stopped holding the grain, and the grain grew hard, and life, little by little, disappeared from the face of the earth. There were fewer plants, and fewer insects, and fewer birds, and fewer frogs and lizards and snakes and squirrels and chipmunks and deer and wolves, and eventually there were going to be fewer people too. But in that moment, the sun realized something. It was really boring when there was nothing else alive and interesting to watch. There were no children dancing in the light. There were no leaves starting to turn green to absorb the sun. There were no flowers. There were no animals. Being the sun had become terribly dull. And the rain became saddened because it didn't see the smile of the gardener in the garden, or the brooks babbling, or the rivers rushing, or green things growing up. And the earth grew tired and dry. Her skin began to crack and itch. She desperately needed the rain. And the grain of wheat, well, some of them began to rot. And others just grew harder and smaller, turning into pebbles. None of them were happy. And so they decided to have a meeting. They met with the Spirit of life and with one another, and they said, everything is dying in this universe that you created to be so good and fruitful. Please give life back to the earth. And the Spirit of life said, I'm not the one who took it away. I have given you everything you need to support life on earth. Life is only born among you, between you, when you cooperate, when you give the gifts that you have and build together. Life will be born anew if each of you shares your nature, your best self with all of creation. For life is born of a sharing of life. And when cooperation is refused, life cannot be. And so the sun realized that it was time to shine again. And it came back, day after day, little by little, more time with more light. And the change from light into dark caused some movement in the air, and suddenly there were clouds, and Lady Rain dropped all of herself all over the earth, soothing that itchy skin that came from the darkness and the dryness from Mother Earth. And as her skin became supple, became moistened, all of those seeds that had turned into hard little rocks softened, and their shells began to break, and the seeds began to sprout, and the trees began to grow leaves, and all of the animals that had been in hiding, hoping for this day, came out. And the rebirth of the sun meant the rebirth of the world. In my version of this story, it also means that humanity figured out a few things, did some good for those grains of wheat, and for Mother Earth, and for Lady Rain, and everyone in the end cooperated in the rebirth of the sun, the rebirth of the light, and the rebirth of life. May it be so.
noticed that nighttime is coming earlier these days. For people who live in the northern part of the world, these festivals of light come at a time when there are fewer hours of daylight. It makes sense that people want to bring more light into the dark hours of the day, and celebrating something meaningful gives us a reason to do that.
So we take these lights that are part of us, the ideas that feel like sparks in our heads, stories of the sun and the moon and the stars, of gods and goddesses, of heroes and heroines and saviors of all kinds. And then we put them out into the world with candles and lamps and bonfires and twinkling lights of all sorts. And then we also sing songs and have parties and sit quietly and listen to old stories told once again. And often we talk about these things as though we all know what these stories are, but I'm really curious, and I'd actually love to hear your answers right now. What stories do you tell during this time? What are the stories that are most important to you? Which ones do you bring back again and again and again? Anyone? All right, I'll start. At home, we really like How the Grinch Stole Christmas. That is a story that we tell again and again and again, whether because we put it up on the TV or because we read the book. That is one that we do over and over. What about you? Yes?
The story of the Nutcracker.
The story of the Nutcracker. That's a great story for this time of year. Yes?
I do Hanukkah on a cart at school telling Hanukkah stories.
Hanukkah on a cart at school telling Hanukkah stories. Fantastic. I saw a couple more hands. Yes?
And this is not necessarily a Christmas story, but it is a Christmas Day story.
Mm-hmm.
My dad would get all of the children all around who were in our neighborhood. And I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and we were living in Long Meadow, Massachusetts. And we would play stickball. And all of the kids, no matter what troubles they had in their family, he included everyone.
Wonderful.
And it was so special for every one of those children.
So I'm going to tell that again just a little bit to make sure that all of you at home can hear that, because I'm not sure that our microphones would have picked that up super well. So this is a family story about when her father would bring all of the kids in the neighborhood together on Christmas Day and play stickball. No matter who they were, no matter what their lives were like, everybody would get to come together and play and have a special day together. Thank you. Yes?
When I was growing up, we used to tell the story of a family friend who came to visit us for the Christmas holiday, and because of an enormous snowstorm, ended up staying with us the entire month of January.
Okay, so this is another good family and friends story about a family friend who came for Christmas and with a gigantic snowstorm got stuck and stayed for all of January too. Yes?
When I was a kid at Catholic school at St. Mary's, we would put on pageants. And I was so small, and all my classmates were so small, that we would use a pillowcase as our outfit as an angel. And we got a little, of course, we didn't use up pillowcases so quickly in those days. So but we purchased one for that very purpose. And my dad would take a clothes hanger, a wire one, and make a little hanger.
Okay, so a story about a Christmas pageant in which the angels' outfits were pillowcases and a coat hanger became the halo. Yes?
This is getting the family Christmas tree. When I was quite young, my dad would take my brother and me and an axe and a saw and go off to cut your own Christmas tree. It wasn't at a Christmas tree farm, though. I'm going to stay farm.
So a family story about wild foraging one's own Christmas tree, whether from a place that was going to be permitted or maybe not. Yeah, all right. Patricia, what's one of your holiday Advent stories?
Well, I take all this very seriously and too seriously. So many people don't know this, but my husband and I spend much of our free time watching all of the very irreverent holiday cartoons that are out there and have been a part of the ether for about the last 20 years, like South Park. And yes. So this is how we de-stress during the holidays.
Absolutely. There are so many more stories. Perhaps you're aware of a wonderful story about a fellow who defeats the Hanukkah goblins who try to put out all of the lights on the menorah. If you don't know that, when I have a copy of the book, I will be happy to tell you about it. It's a great story. Or perhaps Amal and the Night Visitors. You've heard this opera at some point in your life. Or perhaps it's the stories of solstice, or Kwanzaa, or the New Year. Whatever those stories are, I invite you to share them with one another, not just within your families and friends, but within this congregation. Tell one another news stories. Tell one another the stories that are important to you so that we all can share in the joy of this season together.
For a little while, we decide to believe in miracles. Angels, maybe, or oil that keeps burning and keeps burning. Evil being defeated once and for all by good, the rebirth of the sun. And then we discover that there are real miracles that do happen all of the time, like Lucia and the bread. The birth of children, justice made when it seems too far away, the kindness we share that let people survive hard times, abundance when we don't expect it, the rebirth of hope, and the promise of a new year.
Let us
Please
join
rise
together.
in body and spirit as we sing hymn 55.
Let us join in speaking the words of our Unison benediction. It's in your order of service and in the description online. Engage with the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. And please be seated for our posting.